In this video, we're going to show you how to set up a Potty Sniffer system with a dual flush style toilet. This style toilet uses two buttons, one for a low volume flush and a second button for a high volume flush, and uses a canister bodied flush valve. This particular example is made by Kohler, but others will be similar in design. When we open this up, we see the center canister and a side mounted overflow pipe. Unfortunately, there is no standard direction that the overflow pipe could be oriented towards, which causes us some issues when trying to fit an air intake shroud in the available space. In this case, the overflow pipe is oriented away from the fill valve, and there's enough space available to use a regular intake shroud. We won't be able to install this on center, but if we remove the centering ring, we can install the shroud off center and oriented with the vacuum relief float towards the back of the tank. Once you confirm that the intake shroud fits, the install is the same as for the regular air intake, which we cover in a different how-to video. You can also download the air intake shroud overlay from our website and check to see if it will fit with a cutout template. If you have a flush valve with the overflow pipe oriented towards the fill valve, using a regular air intake shroud will likely not be possible. One option would be to disassemble the tank and reorient the flush valve so that the overflow pipe is angled towards the open side of the tank. For a brand new toilet, this could be the easiest solution. We also offer a dual flush air intake shroud that is specifically designed for this situation. Compared to the regular shroud, the dual flush version is designed for a tighter fit around the overflow pipe and wraps around the body of the canister. To help verify fit, an overlay for this design is also available on our website for download. Your flush valve may also come with the overflow pipe turned towards the back of the toilet tank. This is the actual position our dual flush Kohler example is set up from the factory. In this case, the dual flush style air intake is also needed since the standard air intake is too big to fit. Before beginning install, make sure that the toilet is properly adjusted for the water fill level, about an inch from the top of the overflow pipe, and that the toilet is flushing properly. Remove the refill tube from the overflow pipe and position the air intake shroud over the top of the pipe. The setup and adjustment of the dual flush air intake is the same as for a regular intake shroud. We will need to adjust the vacuum relief tube to be just below the water and the vacuum release float to be barely closed. Use a ruler to measure from the water line to the top of the shroud. Since we're doing this demo without water, we'll assume a measurement of 2 3/4 inches. Then take out the shroud and use the measurement to adjust the end of the tube to just below the water line, about 1/8 of an inch. Next, feed the new refill tube and clip out the bottom of the intake shroud. Clip the refill tube to the top of the overflow pipe, making sure that the refill tube is aimed into the pipe and that the clip is positioned at the 5 o'clock position so that it is oriented towards the center of the intake shroud. Hold on firmly to the free end of the refill tube and slide the intake shroud down the tubing and into position over the top of the overflow pipe. Next, adjust the vacuum relief float valve so that it is barely closed. Hold the valve cover stationary while turning the thumb screw to adjust the set position of the valve cover. A heavy-duty zip tie is included with the kit to hold the intake shroud in place against the side of the flush canister. It helps to start the zip tie loop before lowering it into position. Final position will depend on your specific canister design, but it should be towards the top of the canister and not interfere with its function. The zip tie should not be fully tightened and can be left a little bit loose to allow for it to be slipped on and off as needed for future maintenance. You can trim the excess zip tie or just tuck it out of the way as we've done here. Next, connect the new refill tube to the original refill tube using the straight barb connector that is included with the kit. After connecting the refill tube, tuck the excess tubing out of the way. It should not interfere with the function of the flush cylinder, fill valve, or vacuum relief float. At this point, the air intake tubing that leads to the sniffer pump can be inserted into the open tubing port of the air intake shroud. After connecting the airline, connect the button switch to the pump and start the sniffer pump. Perform a test flush to make sure that everything is working properly. The tank should refill and shut off in the normal amount of time, and no water should be sucked into the pump at any point during the cycle. Hang the button switch on the front of the toilet and complete the connection to the button switch extension cord. We do have a problem with this tank design since it doesn't have any air vent cutouts that we can use for tubing and cable pass-through. So we will need to use the tank lid spacers that are included with the kit to provide us with a gap. Taking a look at the underside of the tank lid, we see that there are some flat spots on each corner of the lid that we should take advantage of for pass-through. Install the clip-on tank cover spacers and then route the tubing and cable along the corner flats on the underside of the tank lid. Test fit the cover to see if there are any major fit-up or function concerns. Although the lid is slightly tilted, the gap along the back edge faces the wall is typically not too significant. In our next how-to video, we will be modifying this Kohler tank to include pass-through cutouts so that the lid can be fully closed for a cleaner look. Since we are using tank cover spacers, the push rods for the buttons will need to be extended due to the added gap. Some toilet models have adjustable push rods. Check under the lid where the rods are mounted to see if this is available. Since this wasn't included with our Kohler, we'll be adding some adhesive-backed foot pads to the push buttons to make up for the extra gap spacing. These are available at most hardware stores. Once the button spacers are mounted, replace the cover and check to make sure that the buttons are functioning properly. And we're done. Check out our other how-to videos in gallery for more information and other install examples to help plan for your own sniffer system installation.